Yep, you see. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Welcome to the last mosque open day for this year. So for next year you will get another forward planner from Mustaq, again with the dates of Ramadan and Eid and so on. House rules, as you know, if there is a fire alarm, you need to leave the building, even if it's raining or it's snowing. Some people say it's cold outside. It is for you to decide whether you want to burn to death or whether you want to freeze to death. So the choice is yours. I would suggest that you opt for freezing to death.
Either way you're going to die.
So either way you're going to but at least fire brigade won't have to rush into a burning building and rescue you and so on. Yes, and you know, if there is a fire alarm, then please, leave the building immediately. As they say on the aeroplanes, you know, your hand luggage, don't bother trying to get it down from the hold and so on. I mean, this little announcement we have to make, not only to remind you, but also to comply with legal requirements of the thing. Some announcements. I'm leaving for New Delhi on the 10th of December. So I arrive there on the 11th. And then I'll be in New Delhi until Friday, and then I'll go to Jammu, and I'll be in Jammu Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then on Monday we leave by car to go to Lahore. The plan is that there are going to be some more people who will join me from the Jammu Jamaat to go to Lahore for the Jalsa, but we have to see. And obviously, Fridays have to be covered. The Fridays which need to be covered are 14th of December, 21st of December, and 28th of December, and 4th of January. And I've lost my pen. So Jawad has kindly offered to lead the prayers on the 14th of December, and Mustaq will do 21st, and Nasir Sahib will do 28th of December. So we need a volunteer to cover 4th of January. I'd be grateful. Well, I wouldn't be grateful. I won't be here. Mustaq will be grateful for any offers. I'm pleased to announce that a number of people of the UK Jamaat are making regular donations towards repairs of the Berlin Mosque. So just like they donate a monthly sum to the UK Jamaat's work, they've set up a standing order to do the same thing for Berlin, although the money comes to us. So we can transfer it into the Euro account, and when needed, then to Berlin. And that does not mean to say that those people who are doing it have reduced their contributions to the UK Jamaat. They've maintained their contribution to the UK Jamaat while making this extra sacrifice. And I thank everyone for that. It's always difficult. Sometimes people say, you know, to encourage others, you should give names, and other times people say, no, we don't want our names mentioned. So I've chosen not to mention any names at this time. The vast majority of members of the Jamaat are now regularly paying subscription by standing order. There are a very small number of non-payers, and I request them to complete the standing order. If they come and see me, I can email it, or I can email it to everyone and people. Those who haven't completed it can complete it and send it back. Send me a copy and send their bank a copy. The executive decided at the last meeting that the next AGM will also be elections for various reasons. It's been about 5 years since we had elections, so we should have elections anyway. And we, I think, need to start wrinklies like me of the executive committee and start populating it with younger people. He said, looking at Jawad and Inshal, to carry on the work. If you join the committee now, it will take you 6 months to figure out what is going on and so on. Ask Muhammad Ali, who deals with just one aspect of our finances, about how complicated it has become. We haven't made it complicated, it's become complicated because of what the legal requirements are for what the charities must do. Bad news is that we've moved our mailing system from Google to MailChimp for a number of reasons. One was that in Google you had to set up a group for everything. So the result was that, for example, if I changed my email address, I'd have to go to 3 or 4 different groups to change the email address. And also it meant that sometimes, particularly in Ramadan, people received duplicate emails, which is annoying. Now, the bad news about MailChimp is that not only does it send out these things, but it also tells me who clicked on the email that I've sent, and who opened it, and who read it, and for how long that was open.
GDP.
So, sorry?
So there's a new regulation, you can't do that.
So, sorry?
Is deletion without reading counted as a
So, what's going to happen is this. I may not mention the names of people who are paying for Berlin, but I'll mention the names of people who don't open. Blackmail is a wonderful thing, you know. No, I mean, it's very useful because it allows you to see what is happening to the emails you're sending. I mean, you know, if you're sending someone emails for a whole year and they're not even bothering to open them, then, you know, why are you bothering? At the moment, we've got a free service because I managed to, one, get them to agree, and two, kept the number of emails under a certain limit. So we send out something like, I think, 1,400 emails every month. That includes the light invitation for this, Al-Noor, and everything else. Those of you who might have listened, you might have noticed that we started broadcasting in French. Every week I get a little 10-minute chat from Abu in Ivory Coast. Its quality, technical quality, is not very good. So I've asked him to download Audacity and also buy an external mic rather than rely on his laptop or mobile phone. So I hope that will improve the quality. But of course, the other thing we've got to remember is that if we get someone in Pakistan and get him to record an English broadcast, he is going to have a Punjabi or a Sindhi or whatever accent. And so he's in Ivory Coast, he has that accent. But at least something has started, and next broadcast hopefully is going to be with Audacity and an external mic, which will improve at least the technical quality, and we'll take it from there. Professor Patrick Bowen and his wife have agreed, this is about our convention, to come and speak to us about the role of the Lahore Ahmadiyya movement in spread of Islam in the United States. Professor Zoltz, something or other, I can never pronounce his name. Perhaps I should take lessons from Inchal, maybe he can pronounce his name. It's got lots of U's and V's and X's and G's and Z's in it, you know, from Hungary. He's going to talk about the influence our Jamaat had in Hungary. I hope Ibrahim Muhammad is going to come and speak about the influence of our Jamaat in South Africa, because if you remember, Hazrat Khwaja Kamaluddin Sahib Rahmatullah actually visited South Africa, and while there in those days he challenged the bishop there to an open debate about Islam and Christianity. He was accompanied by Lord Hadley. So we will have, Dr. Yonker can't come because she's going on holiday on Saturday, but she's going to speak either on Friday or Saturday on Skype, and some other people we're trying to get to come and speak. But we're trying, my aim is to try and get academic scholars who are not Ahmadis to come and speak at the main function, which is on Saturday in the H.G. Wells halls, rather than us. You know, as Mandy Rice Davis said when she was told that the Lord, I forget the Lord's name now, had said something, and she said, he would say that, wouldn't he? So people would say, well, he's a Lahori Ahmadi, he would say that, wouldn't he? But if these are independent academics, then, you know, it carries much more weight. So these are the, yes, the most important one, of course, is that we'll need help with work and finance and so on. The flat next door needs substantial repairs, this building, plus the convention itself. And in addition to that, we'll need help with the work as well, collecting people from the airport. I hope both of you pass your driving tests. Excellent, excellent. If not, do it now, yes. Yes, collecting people from the airport, dropping them back at the airport, and then on Sunday when we take them round Horsell Common and Brookwood Cemetery and so on, you know, people will have to be ferried. We will hire at least one bus which will accommodate about 12 people, but it may be that we
I
need...
think we can hire a big one here, right, and hold 40 people, 45.
40 people?
Yeah, rather than going in the cars and small vans, you know.
Yes,
just
yes,
one.
yeah. Yep. I mean, we can look at that. At the moment, we were thinking of only one bus. Well, 2 12-seaters, or as you say, you can hire a bigger one. But with the bigger one, we'll have to take on with the driver, because you need a PSV license, whereas these ones you can do ourselves. So I'd request everyone, please book your holiday for the week before and a couple of days after. Some people have said that they want to stay on and make it a bit of a holiday as well. So I'm sort of chatting with them about that. So these are the announcements. Next thing is recitation of the last 10 surahs. Hamad is not here, so in his
He's running a little bit behind.
Sorry?
He's just coming, he's a bit behind at the moment.
He's a bit behind.
He's coming.
Okay, all right.
Also, Maghrib is
So-
around 4 o'clock.
What time is it now?
Half
Sorry?
3.
3:30. No. Okay.
Yeah, Maghrib is
Okay.
3:60.
Shall we switch and you can speak, and then when Hamad arrives he can do the recitation?
Yeah.
Okay. The 10 chapters rather than hang around.
Might have to do 5.
So, Haji, sorry.
I think we need to take the break between to say the prayers and
Yes. So if you can start, then when you finished we can say our prayers and then carry on with maybe Hamad or Yahya, depending on if he's here.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا إكراه في الدين لا إكراه في الدين لا إكراه في الدين صدق الله العلي العظيم. My respected elders, brothers and sisters and children, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First, let me apologize to Yahya, because last month we had a chat about what we were going to talk about, and I gave him a totally different topic. and today I have chosen this one verse of the Quran. Very unique, very simple, and very common verse of the Quran. The English translation, as we all know, is that there is no compulsion in religion. There is a reason for me wanting to discuss this with you. If you look at the trend, historical trend, at the time of the Prophet, after the Prophet, at the time of the promised Messiah, and nowadays, non-believers, atheists, they have tried to denigrate Islam, the Prophet, and even the promised Messiah, but using different approaches. During the time of the Prophet, the Quran says they call him a madman. During the time of the promised Messiah, again, we had people like Pandit Lake Ram and Dr. Alexander Dowie of America making all sorts of accusations against Islam. Well, the trend they have upped their game now. So the idea is to denigrate the Quran, disprove the Quran. And one of the verses that people use nowadays is this verse. They say, well, Muslims, the apologetics say there is no compulsion in Islam. But look at what ISIS is doing to people. Look at what happens to when someone accepts Islam. They have to do all the covering up and then the charity and the zakat and everything. So I chose this verse of the Quran to enlighten all of us. We need to know how to respond to these challenges. So the full English translation of the verse is, there is no compulsion in religion. The right way is indeed clear, distinct from error. Interestingly, distinct from error. So whoever believes in the devil and whoever disbelieves in the devil and believes in Allah, he indeed lays hold onto the firmest handle, which shall never break. And Allah is hearing, knowing. If one studies religious scriptures, we see a lot of similarities. What are these similarities? Well, most scriptures talk about the oneness of God or a supreme being. Most scriptures will tell you that alcohol is forbidden. They encourage you as to eat what is wholesome, and they tell you how to behave. And these are just to mention a few of the similarities of scriptural etiquette. However, this one verse of the Quran, that is, there is no compulsion in religion, is distinct and is a distinction not found in other scriptures. It is implied in the writings of the scholars of other faiths, but it is not found as it is in the Quran. Ibn Kathir, one of the famous commentators of the Quran, he commentates on this verse and he says, there is no compulsion in religion, meaning do not force anyone to become a Muslim. For Islam is plain and clear, and its proofs and evidence are plain and clear. Therefore, there is no need to force anyone to embrace Islam. Rather, whoever Allah directs to Islam, opens his heart for it, and enlightens his mind, will certainly embrace Islam. It is reported that the Ansar were the reason behind revealing this ayah, although its indication is general in meaning. So I would ask any one of you now, is religious democracy any greater than what we find in this verse? So let's look at the counter-arguments. The counter-argument is perpetrated by non-Muslims, atheists, from the very next verse of the Quran. So let's look at the next verse. So the initial verse was chapter 2, verse 256. The next verse, chapter 2, verse 257, states, Allah is the friend of those who believe. He brings them out of darkness into light. And those who disbelieve, their friends are the devils, who take them out of light into darkness. They are the companions of the fire, therein they abide. So in quoting this verse of the Quran, disbelievers in the oneness of God say that based on the impending doom of the disbelievers if they reject the one God and the Holy Prophet Muhammad, how could there be no compulsion in religion? Isn't God compelling me to believe? He does not want to be my friend. He wants to leave me in darkness. In other words, God is compelling me to believe, and the reward for this is his friendship and light. In clarifying this dispute, the Quran admonishes the Holy Prophet Muhammad to say to his people, originally and initially, and they were the dwellers of the desert. Chapter 49, verse 14 states, say, we believe. Say, you believe not, but say we submit, as faith has not yet entered your hearts. And if you obey Allah and his messenger, he will not diminish aught of your deeds. Surely Allah is forgiving, merciful. So at the time of the Rasul, we all know the history of the Arabs, the pagan Arabs. They used to bury their girl children alive. They wouldn't inherit their mothers. They were alcoholics. And they were disbelievers. They were idol worshippers. And Allah offered them the opportunity of a realization and spiritual awakening through his mercy. So in Islam, there is freedom to believe or not to believe. But there is something in between. And we need to talk about that. And that in-between issue is, does God want to have a relationship with you if you do not believe in him? Where do you stand? So Allah answers this question in chapter 17, verse 70. He states, and surely we have honored the children of Adam, and we carry them in the land and the sea, and we provide for them good things, and we have made them to excel highly most of those whom we have created. Aren't we all the children of Adam? So does not God want to have a relationship with us? Does he not provide for us? When the sun shines, does it shine on the crops of the Muslims and not on those who are non-Muslims? When the rain comes, does it water only the crops of those who believe in God? I was listening to a program recently, and it states that the 3 wealthiest people in the world, their combined wealth is greater than the 48 poorest countries of the world. How many of these 3 people are Muslims? How many of them believe in God? One of them is the family called the Rothschild. They own the World Bank. Allah, one of the attributes of Allah is adl, just. Allah is just. And He rewards each individual for their efforts. Whether you believe in Him or not. Allah says in chapter 3 verse 195. So their Lord accepted their prayer, saying, I will not suffer the work of any worker among you to be lost, whether male or female, the one of you being from the other. We have in our midst here, and we had people who had to give up their life and their career for the sake of religion. We have Nasir Sahib, who is sitting right here, who is a lawyer by qualification, who gave up his life for the sake of Jamaat. We had Muhammad Anwar, who gave his life, left his family in Pakistan, traveled to the West Indies to spread the word of Islam, gave up his life for something. So why should he not be rewarded? Why should you want to not believe and be rewarded? Who sets the goalpost here? Allah rewards even the minutest of good, irrespective of your nationality, your gender, whether you have a faith or you have no faith. And this is the common theme nowadays. I went to a funeral of one of my brother's friends, and she was a lady of no faith. And this is something that actually happened. We were in her room when she was dying, and she asked my wife to go to her bag and take out a little angel. She had a little angel in her bag, so and we gave her the angel. And there was only 3 of us in the room, my wife, myself, and her. And she was asking us, who are all these people in the room? She don't know who are these people. They're strangers to her. So things happen in the spiritual world that you don't know. But as a Muslim, as a member of this Jamaat, you should understand. So Allah rewards you, whether you have a faith or you do not have a faith. How do we know this? I will give you the verse of the Quran. Allah says in chapter 99, verse 7, whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it, and whoever does an atom's weight of evil will also see it. So the 2 verses quoted previously make no distinction between the followers of any religion or of no religion. Whether you believe in God or not, whether you believe in a religion or not, the Quran says your good works, your manners, your kindness, your sacrifices will not be wasted. It will be acknowledged and you will be rewarded. What about those who have no faith and profess another faith, and out of respect for you they say Assalamu alaikum or Eid Mubarak? We have people like this where we work. They profess no faith, but out of respect for you they say Assalamu alaikum or Eid Mubarak. What does Allah say about them? Chapter 4 verse 94. O you who believe, when you go forth in Allah's way, make investigation and say not to anyone who offers you Islamic salutation, thou art not a believer. It is not your right to determine what a person has in their heart or their mind for God. That's not your duty to judge. But we take them at face value. That's only for Allah to decide. Allah knows what's in their heart. Say not to anyone who offers you Islamic salutation, thou art not a believer. A very good example of this is a Christian friend of ours who we work together, but when he sees us, he says, Assalamu alaikum. And one day, a young Somalian girl came to work with her headscarf and everything, and he told her, Assalamu alaikum, and she abused him. So we had to call her one side, and I showed her this verse of the Quran, and then she went and apologized to him. There is a psychology behind having the freedom to choose your fate. The ability to choose to believe or not to believe has a great impact on our development and psyche. The following publications and articles highlights the effect on our well-being in having the freedom to choose a fate or an alternative. So I quote from the article called Fate and Freedom, Traditional and Modern Ways to Happiness, written by Ronald F. Inglehart, published on Oxford Scholarship Online. He states, there are two main routes to happiness. One is linked with modernization and the other with traditional belief systems. Insofar as modernization brings greater income and political and personal freedom, it is conducive to rising subjective well-being. In the recent decades, it has actually made people happier. So he's saying that modernization, all your smartphones and all the stuff you enjoy nowadays, it makes you happier. But does it? Belief systems, in other words, old religions, also shape subjective well-being. And religion has traditionally helped offset the effects of poverty. Thus, within most countries, religious people are happier than non-religious people. This is from his article. Although they tend to have lower incomes. And cross-nationally, the people of strongly religious, low-income countries are substantially happier than the people of less religious, low-income countries. Interestingly, he also goes on to state, today the publics of most ex-communist countries show a weak or negative correlation between religion and subjective well-being. This seems to reflect a recent influx of unhappy people who have turned to religion following the collapse of faith in communism, which once provided a sense of meaning and certainty for many people. In the National Opinion Research Center, a survey of 42,000 Americans since 1962 states, 26% of those never attending religious services have reported being very happy, as has 47% of those participating in services more than weekly. An active faith seems to connect us with others, engenders meaning and purpose beyond self, and sustains our hope that in the end, the very end, all shall be well. In summary, it also goes on to state that people who follow, he quotes here, epidemiological phenomenon. Those who follow a religion live longer. This is from their survey of 42,000 people. In another article, in the USA Today, it says, religion may be a miracle drug. Harvard professor of epidemiology states, the accumulated evidence for a bold claim is that religion may be a miracle drug. It is actually good for us. Moving on. The Harvard study of adult development, they took on for the last 75 years, they have been tracking the lives of 724 men. And this is what they state. The clearest message that we get from this 75-year study is this. Good relationships keep us happier and healthier. Period. This was not intuitive 75 years ago, and it is now. Just like the millennials, in that recent survey, many of our men, when they started out as young adults, really believed that fame and wealth and high achievement were what they needed to go further and further in life. But over and over the 75 years, our study has shown that people who fared the best were the people who leaned into relationships with family, friends, and community. It's a lot to take in. But essentially, religion is good for you. You live longer. And when you set out your goals in life and you think, well, I'm going to do this PhD, that, and move on, we all do it. But those who fared best were those who leaned into relationships with family, friends, and community, as we have here today. University of Pennsylvania, psychology professor, Angela Duckworth, she gives the parable of three bricklayers. And this is very interesting, very short. So she approached three guys laying bricks. All of them doing the same job. She said, "What are you doing?" The first guy said, "I am laying bricks." The second guy said, "I am building a church." The third guy said, "I am building the house of God." What does it mean? It means the way you perceive things has an outcome for you. So for the first guy, it was just a job, laying bricks. For the second guy, he's building a church. That's his career. He's a big contractor. He's building churches. First guy, he's just laying bricks. But the third guy said, "I am building the house of God." So it's our perception of what we do and what we believe that leads to our outcome in life. Very interesting. So President Barack Obama, in 2009 in Egypt, he gave a short speech. And it says, in his much anticipated speech to Muslims across the world, notably to highlight to his listeners the importance of freedom of religion. And he said in just a few lines, and I quote, "People in every country should be free to choose and live their faith based upon the persuasions of their mind and heart and soul. Freedom of religion is central to the ability of people to live together." Isn't this what our Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ encouraged? The delegation of Christians that came from the Najran, he entertained them in the mosque. For 3 days, they were asking questions about Jesus and about God. When it was time to pray, he said, "Pray here. This is a house of God." When he sent a delegation to the king of Abyssinia, the king allowed them to pray in the church. So why should it be different today? A very common question that's asked is, why didn't God make all of us follow the same religion? There wouldn't be any quarreling, any fighting, anyone saying my religion is better. There wouldn't be any of this. Very common question, very often asked. And the answer is in the Quran. Chapter 18, verse 29. It states, "And say, the truth is from your Lord. So let him who please believe, and let him who please disbelieve." Very simple. You don't need to argue with people. Say, just read this verse of the Quran. It's for me and it's for you. And again in chapter 10, verse 99. "And if thy Lord had pleased, all those who are in the earth would have believed." All of them. "Will thou then force men till they are believers?" Allah is asking the question, will you force people until they are believers? Here is profound proof that in Islam, there is religious freedom. There is no compulsion in religion. No one has the right to compel anybody to believe anything. How much more time do I have? Shall I close here? Yeah. So I came across 2 websites where Christians were attacking Muslims and Sikhs and Hindus were attacking Muslims. One of them said, well, in Islam, you cannot believe in the oneness of God without believing in Muhammad. So you have duality. The others, other than the Christian website, they were maligning Islam about there is no freedom in religion. And I came across a very interesting article. I'm just going to quote a few verses from the Bible. The first is from Deuteronomy, chapter 20, verses 10 to 18. In the Old Testament we read, "When you advance to a city to fight against it, you shall first offer it terms of peace. If that city accepts your terms of peace and opens its gates to you, then all the people who are found in it shall become your forced labor and serve you." This is what God was saying to the children of Israel when they went out to make people Jews. Okay, this is in the Bible. I'm not quoting it out of context. "However, if it does not make peace with you, but makes war against you, then you shall lay siege to it. When the Lord your God gives it into your hands, you shall strike down all men in it with the edge of your sword." And they say Islam was spread by the sword. Only the women and the children and the animals and everything in that city and all its spoils you shall take as plunder for yourself. And it goes on and on. Now, is this freedom to believe? Freedom to practice? Freedom to live? But they say Islam was spread by the sword. I quote from Joshua chapter 10 verse 25 and 26. Don't be afraid, do not be discouraged. Be strong and courageous. This is what the Lord will do to all the enemies you are going to fight. Then Joshua put the kings to death and exposed their bodies on 5 poles, and they were left hanging on the poles until evening. I saw a clip of a video a few years ago whereby this is what ISIS was doing to people. So, is there freedom of religion anywhere? I shall close. In the end, it is our duty to follow the example of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we come up against abuse in relation to this issue, we are asked in the Quran, Allah has asked us, and the servants of Allah, the most gracious, are those who walk in the earth in humility. And when the ignorant address you, say to them peace. Chapter 25, verse 63. And finally, the beautiful surah of Al-Quran, one of the last few surahs, Kul ya ayyuhal kafirun, la abudu ma ta'budun, wa la antum abiduna ma abud, wa la ana abidum ma abadtum, wa la antum abiduna ma abud, lakum dinakum waliyuddin. Say, O disbelievers, I serve not that which you serve, nor do you serve that whom I serve, nor shall I serve that which you serve, nor do you serve him whom I serve. For you is your religion, and for me is my religion. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yeah, here. What's the time now? Maghrib time? Okay. Okay. So we will pray Maghrib now, and then we will continue, if that's okay with everyone. Hamad, Azan.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
So we welcome back our viewers online and those who are here in Jamaat. We will continue with our program. Our next speaker is Brother Yahya. And just to let you know, I forgot to mention the topic of my talk today was freedom of religion or freedom from religion. You choose. I'll hand you over now to Brother Yahya.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I begin in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Assalamu alaikum to our respected President, our Secretary, our elders, our brothers and sisters.
Oh, just sorry, sir. I'm just thinking of the voices.
Thank you. Innama al-mu'minuna allazina iza zukira Allahu wajilat qulubuhum wa iza tuliyat alayhim ayatuhu zadatuhum iman wala rabbihim yatawakkaluna allazina yukimuna al-salata wa mimma razaqnahum yunfikuna alayka hummu al-mu'minuna haqqan lahum darajatun inda rabbihim wa maghfiratun wa rizqun karimun. Those are the only true believers whose hearts feel fear when Allah is mentioned, and when the revelations of Allah are recited before them, they increase in faith. They find their faith strengthened, and who trust in their Lord, who establish worship and spend of that we have bestowed on them. Those are they who are in truth believers. For such people are grades of honor with their Lord's pardon and a bountiful provision. That's from the Quran, chapter 8, verses 2 to 4. Now, at the start of Brother Mustaq's speech, he had to ask for my forgiveness for changing the topic of his speech. But as we all know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala works in mysterious ways. And actually, the speech that I have written still managed to relate to his. Brother Mustaq's speech was about how we are to trust in Islam, and that although there is no compulsion, the faith in Islam is that it is the correct religion for us. I'd like to share with you all a story sent to me by a close friend. An old American Muslim lived on a farm in the mountains of eastern Kentucky with his young grandson. Each morning, Grandpa was up early sitting at the kitchen table reading his Quran. His grandson wanted to be just like him and tried to imitate him in every way he could. One day, the grandson asked, "Grandpa, I tried to read the Quran just like you, but I don't understand it. And what I do understand, I forget as soon as I close the book. What good does reading the Quran do?" The grandfather quietly turned from putting coal in the stove and replied, "Take this coal basket down to the river and bring me back a basket of water." The boy did as he was told, but all the water leaked out before he got back to the house. The grandfather laughed and said, "You will have to move a little faster next time," and sent him back to the river with the basket to try again. This time the boy ran faster, but again the basket was empty before he returned home. Out of breath, he told his grandfather that it was impossible to carry water in a basket, and he went to get a bucket instead. The old man said, "I don't want a bucket of water, I want a basket of water. You're just not trying hard enough." And he went out the door to watch the boy try again. Now, at this point, the boy knew it was impossible, But he wanted to show his grandfather that even if he ran as fast as he could, the water would leak out before he got back to the house. The boy again dipped the basket into the river and ran hard. But when he reached his grandfather, the basket was yet again empty. Out of breath, he said, "See, Grandpa, it's useless." "So you think it's useless?" the old man said. "Look at the basket." The boy looked at the basket, and for the first time he realized that the basket was different. It had been transformed from a dirty, soot-covered old coal basket and was now clean inside and out. Dear son, that's what's happening when you read the Quran. You might not understand or remember everything, but when you read it, you will be cleansed inside and out. That is the power of the words of Allah. My dear brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles, the story I've shared with you should be a reminder to not just be a part-time Muslim who only remembers the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in times of fortune, or an airport theist who only recites the holy book when there's turbulence. But rather to take heed of the words of the Quran, even when you don't see an immediate benefit or when you feel like you don't understand. You will surely find answers to questions you may not know you had. As I'm about to share with you some of mankind's most asked questions for which the Quran already has answers. To start, from the Quran chapter 4 verse 82, "Then do they not reflect upon the Quran? If it had been from any other than Allah, they would have found within it much contradiction." Now the first question, who is God? And we answered this by, He is Allah, other than whom there is no deity, knower of the unseen and the witnessed. He is the entirely merciful, the especially merciful. He is Allah, other than whom there is no deity, the sovereign, the pure, the perfection, the bestower of faith, the overseer, the exalted in might, the compeller, the superior. I'm not going to list all 99, don't worry. Exalted is Allah, above whatever they associate with Him. He is Allah, the creator, the inventor, the fashioner. To Him belong the best names. Whatever is in the heavens and the earth is exalting Him, and He is the exalted in might, the wise. That's from Quran chapter 59 verses 22 to 24. Another question may be, why would a merciful God allow us to suffer? Do the people think that they will be left to say, "We believe," and they will not be tried? But we have certainly tried those before them, and Allah will surely make evident those who are truthful, and He will surely make evident the liars. Quran chapter 29 verses 2 to 3. Where is God during all this chaos we see and suffering? Quran chapter 14 verses 42 to 43. And never think that Allah is unaware of what the wrongdoers do. He only delays them for a day when eyes will stare in horror. Racing ahead, their heads raised up, their glance does not come back to them, and their hearts are void. And also to answer that question, in the Quran chapter 16 verse 61. And if Allah were to impose blame on the people for their wrongdoing, He would not have left upon the earth any creature, but He defers them for a specified term. And when their term has come, they will not remain behind an hour, nor will they precede it. The next question would be, if God really exists, then why did He allow such and such to happen to me? Allah does not charge a soul except with that within its capacity. It will have the consequence of what good it has gained, and it will bear the consequence of what evil it has earned. Quran chapter 2 verse 286. And also, for indeed with hardship will be ease. Indeed with hardship will be ease. That's from chapter 94 verses 5 to 6. If you were to ask that you keep asking God for such and such and yet He hasn't answered you, Quran chapter 2 verse 216. Perhaps you hate a thing and it is good for you. Perhaps you love a thing and it is bad for you. And Allah knows, while you know not. Some may ask, if God exists, then why doesn't He just appear or speak to us? Those who do not say, why does Allah not speak to us? Or there come to us a sign. Thus spoke those before them like their words. Their hearts resemble each other. We have shown clearly the signs to a people who are a certain in faith. Quran chapter 2 verse 118. Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and earth, and the alternation of the night and the day, and the great ships which sail through the sea, with that which benefits people, and what Allah has sent down from the heavens of rain, giving life thereby to the earth after its lifelessness, and dispersing therein every kind of moving creature, and His directing of the winds and the clouds, controlled between the heaven and the earth, are signs for a people who use reason. That's from the Quran chapter 2, 164. What is the soul, and what happens to us when we die? Answered in chapter 17 of the Quran. And they ask you, O Muhammad, about the soul. Say, the soul is of the affair of my Lord, and mankind have not been given of knowledge except a little. Now, probably quite a common question is, if the Quran is truly a guide for all of mankind, then why was it revealed in Arabic? In the Quran chapter 41 verse 44, and if we had made it a non-Arabic Quran, they would have said, why are its verses not explained in detail in our language? Is it a foreign recitation and an Arab messenger? Say, it is for those who believe, a guidance and a cure. If you were to ask, if God exists, then why do evil people live lavishly and good people suffer? And if it were not that the people would become one community of disbelievers, we would have made for those who disbelieve in the Most Merciful for their houses, ceilings and stairways of silver upon which to mount, and for their houses, doors and couches of silver upon which to recline, and gold ornament. But all that is not but the enjoyment of worldly life, and the hereafter with your Lord is for righteousness. That's in the Quran chapter 43, the verses 33 to 35. And following on from, not following on, but also with that, Quran chapter 2, verse 214. Do you think that you will enter paradise while such trial has not yet come to you, as came to those who passed on before you? They were touched by poverty and hardship, and were shaken until even their messenger, and those who believed with him said, when is the help of Allah? Unquestionably, the help of Allah is near. Now, probably the most important question for anybody's life: for what reason do we exist? In the Quran, chapter 51, verse 56, and I did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship me. Finally, what is the purpose of life? He who created death and life to test you as to which of you is best indeed, and He is the exalted in might, the forgiving. From the Quran, chapter 67, verse 2. That's the end of my khutbah today, but it's just been to remind us all to read the Quran and to live our lives as per His instruction. Ameen.
Thank you very much, Mushtaq and Yahya, for those well-prepared speeches. non-Ahmadis have an interesting counter to La Ikraha Fid-Din, which is that you are not allowed to force people to enter into Islam. But once people have entered into Islam, they cannot leave. And this question arose during the second South Africa case. And I was actually amazed that this Roman Catholic judge, in whose interest it was, for example, to say that Jesus didn't have a father, and it was Immaculate Conception and so on, according to the Quran, was arguing with Professor Ghazi and saying, look, Professor, can you not see? Nowhere does the Quran say that Jesus didn't have a father. This is a misinterpretation on your part. This is a Roman Catholic judge who attended church every Sunday, who would have said, you know, it's great, look, the Quran says the same thing as we believe, and so on. And secondly, she commented to Professor Ghazi, and I was amazed at her common sense and the lack of common sense amongst Muslim scholars. She said, I cannot believe that someone as highly intelligent as Muhammad would not have realized that if people don't want to remain Muslims and I force them to remain within Islam, I would be creating a body of fifth columnists within Islam, which is more dangerous than people actually openly leaving the religion of Islam. And she said, I can't understand why Muslim scholars can't see this. But such is life. Or there was another issue which has nothing to do with today's talks, which was that partial superiority. He kept on saying to Mr. de Villiers, please sit down with us. We want to explain to you this concept of partial superiority. And he would go, and we said, what do you mean? This has been a debate between Ahmadis and non-Ahmadis for the last 100 years. So he said to Professor Ghazi, Professor, did Jesus know Latin? The professor said no. Did Jesus practice law? The professor said no. Did Jesus ever take or plead his country's case before the International Court? And the professor said no. And Mr. de Villiers said, but I've done all those things. That makes me superior to Jesus. He said, did Jesus ever land on the moon? He said, no. So that makes Neil Armstrong superior to Jesus. And he then pointed out, he said, being a prophet is a separate and different issue. That is a superiority that God has bestowed upon you. But that does not mean to say that just because someone is a prophet, that no one can be taller than him, no one can have a better memory than him, no one can be a better marksman than him. And Professor Ghazi said, well, yes, this is true, but you mustn't say so, it's blasphemous. So he said, how is it blasphemous? Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, that makes him superior in that respect. So he said, that was all that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was saying, that as a follower and servant of Muhammad, my task is to preach Islam to the whole world, which is a much more difficult task than Jesus faced, because he was only sent to the tribes of Israel. And when we came out, I said to Mr. de Villiers, you know, we've been trying to explain this to them for 100 years, and they didn't understand it, and you understood it without even our explaining it to us. And he said, they understand it fully well. They just don't want to admit it, they understand it fully well. So he said, haven't they read books of the Sufis and so on? So anyway, thank you very much, everyone. I hope everyone is suitably hungry and thirsty now. I can see by the smiles on your face that you are
Obviously spiritually satisfied, but
a bit, obviously spiritually satisfied. Yes, yes. But now in need of physical sustenance. I don't know when the next open day is.
We haven't done the flower plan
Yes,
yet.
yes, yes. If it's in January, then I may not see you. What is it, January the 6th? No, right. That,
Back on the 3rd.
yes, yes, I'm back on the 3rd. So as I'm aware, I'm sure Mustaq is going to put my name down as the speaker because I'll be unable to object.
December dates,
So,
photographic memories.
yeah.
In case of emergency, you can give fatwa.
Yes. So, have a nice Easter. I hope it's not. Oh, sorry, Easter, Christmas. I was gonna say. I hope it's not blasphemous to say. Have a nice Christmas and a happy New Year. And I'll see you in the new year. Thank you very much. And I forgot to thank everyone who did the catering and brought the food. I didn't thank you all because I haven't tasted what you brought yet. But even so, thank you very much for all the effort you put in.